Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook podcast at offthehooksports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now.
Well, it is time for the Vol Report, brought to you by Vols Automotive Group and Big Orange Phillies. Vols Automotive Group is right there downtown Powell, so to speak, on Callahan, and Big Orange Phillies in downtown Halls. It's a great place to go hang out with your family in a sports bar environment. You'll love it. I'll tell you more about both here momentarily. I do want to remind you to stop, like, and subscribe right now so you can hear more from our guest, John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel, podcast extraordinaire, all of that and more. And to our knowledge, the only person that met Jeremy Pruitt that didn't actually pay a prospect to come to Tennessee. Is that correct, John? Because it appears as if the wife, the dog, the assistants, the support staff, everybody else had a role in the ongoing NCAA investigation under Pruitt.
Yeah, I wonder, some people that didn't actually do it, could they be called carriers? That they maybe inadvertently influence some people to pay money to recruits?
Yes, like a COVID-19 carrier type of thing.
Uh-huh.
That's very possible. How serious are these allegations? I want to dive right into that. First, Vols Automotive Group on Callahan. It's about integrity. They want, they need, they appreciate your business. They've got the selection. They've got the service department. They've got it all right there at Vols Automotive Group, and they'll take care of you. So, John, a couple of numbers that struck me when the news first broke about the letter of allegations that the NCAA provided to Tennessee, and it was 18 level 1 violations, which is the most serious. I can't recall a number being that high. Maybe Southern Cal was, probably. But the other thing that stood out to me was $60,000. That's not a lot of money to be divvying out. So, John, just how did it strike you? Let's begin with that, those two numbers specifically.
Well, the money seemed like the players, the recruits, might have got shortchanged. But keep in mind, we only know whom got caught. We don't know all the details. The 18 level 1 violations, that's right out of the Southwest Conference circa 1980s. I mean, that's a lot of serious stuff. But I don't think Tennessee fans were so shocked by this. I think the way Tennessee handled it, in particular Chancellor Donde Plowman, she said right off the bat, after UT did its own internal investigation, she pretty much said, this program is a disaster. It's a dumpster fire, a train wreck, whatever you want to call it. And she was criticized for that, for coming across that strong about Tennessee's transgressions. But I think what happened here, she was exactly right. The NCAA allegations back that up. But really, I would be shocked if Tennessee got a harsh penalty over this, because Donde Plowman has handled this so well. She cleaned house. She laid everything out for the NCAA. And the NCAA has said, we would have nowhere near this evidence if not for Tennessee. We wouldn't know the serious nature of this. So I think they're going to consider all that. Is the only reason they know this is because Tennessee gave it to them. The Tennessee did all the legwork here. And so I think because of that, and because of the fact that Tennessee, with its attorneys who investigated this, has worked with the NCAA all along and helped shepherd the NCAA through this. This isn't the work of an army of NCAA investigators. That army no longer exists. So I think Tennessee did everything right, and I don't think Tennessee will get a bowl ban, may lose a few scholarships, but that's it.
Yeah, I don't think they'll get a bowl ban. I don't even think they'll lose scholarships, but they might. The NCAA is still unpredictable. But nowadays, it's so weird. The backdrop of college football, and I know you're not supposed to pay prospects still, but with the backdrop of college football and paying players, it just doesn't seem as bad as it would have 2 years ago. Does that make sense?
Oh, very much so. But even though you say you're still not supposed to pay players with the NIL deals, you work your way around that. Yeah, you do pay them. I mean, you can pay them $10,000 for an autograph. You can pay them $50,000 for an autograph. It's market value. So it's okay to do this. And what's interesting about this, and I think it impacts fans a lot, is that you mentioned a price tag here, 60 something thousand dollars Tennessee was involved with. I mean, that's not that's not much when we hear about these NIL deals. Tennessee baseball players made more than that on NIL deals. So we're in a brave new world here. Also, one more thing to keep in mind, the NCAA has stated, it did this a few months ago, that going forward, it didn't want to punish innocent parties. It wanted to
Right.
punish the guys that actually did the cheating. And so it would be totally hypocritical. I realize the NCAA has been hypocritical in the past, but now to turn around after you make this significant policy change and hammer Tennessee coaches, players, administrators for what predecessors did just wouldn't be right. And I don't think the NCAA would do that.
No, and I don't think some of the coaches, in particular Greg Schiano and Elia Drinkwitz, had some things to say after the NCAA notice of allegations was delivered. So I want to get into that. You want to get into Big Orange Phillies, where the food is always fresh, never stale. That's not what casual means, and also a great place to hang out in a family fun environment. They've got karaoke, they've got darts, they've got billiards, they've got it all. And you will love Big Orange Phillies. It is right there on Maynardville Pike, the heart of Halls, and it's easy to get to from Maynardville or North Knoxville. Yeah, so Elia Drinkwitz decides to go on to the Jim Rome show, a nationally syndicated show. And I don't know if you've actually heard the audio or read about it, John, but as he was introduced, it was so obvious he had a message he wanted to convey. He basically stopped the introduction and said, "Don't introduce me with my one loss record, because it may change, because Tennessee may have to vacate wins." And I don't think a lot of the coaches are in touch with the way college football has changed, and the fact that Tennessee, I agree with you, probably won't face much of a penalty, but he sounded like a total rube.
Well, but here's the thing: when you say not much of a penalty, I think it will have to forfeit games. But how much does that really bother fans or the university? So, I mean, they lost 19 games with Jeremy Pruitt at the helm. 19 games. So, okay, it's not like you're forfeiting a championship. You're not forfeiting a Sugar Bowl win. I mean, I don't think that really resonates with fans. So I think that would be a penalty Tennessee would receive. But that doesn't affect the future of your program or what's going on now. Tennessee has momentum now, and if you have to lose, you have to forfeit 16 games that you won under Jeremy Pruitt. Does anybody really care that much?
No. So that leads me to, if you're going to punish the guys that were wrong, the Pruitts of the world and the Niedermeyers, who was, I believe, named Rivals Recruiter of the Year, and he was very involved in dispersing cash. So if you really are going to go after the guys that did it, don't they get a 10-year show cause, and Jeremy Pruitt can go in the NFL, and Brian Niedermeyer can head up the I don't know, WNBA or whatever he's doing in Las Vegas.
He'll probably end up coaching high school ball in Anchorage. I think Jeremy Pruitt is done with college football. He's got to get a massive show cause. But even if he didn't, how many people would be eager to hire him now? I mean, Nick Saban hasn't even reached out with one of those, quote, quality control jobs that so many people have gone through the Nick Saban rehab program and got their career back on track. I don't think Nick Saban's offered Jeremy Pruitt anything after he was let go by the Giants. He wasn't actually, the whole staff's gone. So I don't think anybody, I mean, maybe a junior college. I could see him as a junior college defensive coordinator. Otherwise, a small town in Alabama coaching high school ball.
High school is a possibility. I think he can hang on in the NFL because they have about 50 coaches on each coaching staff. And I do think he's pretty good at coaching pass rushing technique. So he's kind of like a way different Chuck Smith. As Chuck Smith had some issues, some of which we haven't even gotten into and haven't become public, but he was good at coaching pass rushing. So there's always a job for guys like that. I just don't think it needs to be a big-time college football.
No, that's done because it's not just the stigma of cheating. It's the stigma of a laughing stock. When it was revealed that his wife, Casey, was involved in the scandal, I mean, that took this to a completely different level. She's now part of SEC lore. We're accustomed to SEC wives being in a sort of a background role. They're kind of in the periphery. They play a role in all this. I mean, they deal with they meet with recruits' families. They host dinners for players, all that kind of good stuff, and they pretty much have to run a household and parent children because the coach is always gone. Casey Pruitt not only did all that, she was out there paying players when she was pregnant. I mean, that's a pregame pep talk. Jeremy Pruitt addresses the team before they're going out to play Florida and said, "Look, guys, my wife is pregnant, and she's out there on the front lines trying to buy you players that will help you win more games. If she can do that, what can you do for me today?" Very inspirational.
It is. I'm motivated to, for the rest of the day, to go ahead and do the best I can. I trust the process of payment by a young lady who probably had an idea that her husband was in hot water. I'm guessing that was part of the inspiration behind it. You know, when I look back at the Jeremy Pruitt, the whole tenure, he started his first press conference with "Aight" about 15 times, which sounded like Nick Saban, but not nearly as good. And then he immediately tried to make an adjustment. So because he was on the Big Orange Caravan tour after, and I interviewed him, he said, "Yeah, some people don't like the way I talk." And I was like, "It's not that. It's just that you say 'aight' 15 times in a sentence." And just the fact that he was already cognizant of that, the fact that I think there was some insecurity early, I just really thought he was going to struggle to have long-term success at an SEC program.
Well, you were right, Dave. He didn't have long-term success or even short-term success. I thought it was revealing in the very first game of the Jeremy Pruitt era, or might spell that ERROR. The very first game was against West Virginia, top 25 team, probably 17th or 18th, somewhere along there, with a really strong passing game with quarterback Will Greer, a good group of wide receivers. So first game at a neutral site in Charlotte, Tennessee loses 40-14. But the thing I remember about that game was Tennessee wasn't out of it completely at halftime. West Virginia didn't look that sharp in the first half. So I'm thinking, okay, Jeremy Pruitt's supposed to be this defensive guru. He'll come up with he'll make some adjustments at halftime, and Tennessee comes out, and it will be maybe just shut West Virginia down, and then maybe get back in this game. Instead, West Virginia just came out and passed Tennessee absolutely silly. I mean, it was one highlight completion after another. And see, that was what Jeremy Pruitt was supposed to be the best at. And we never really saw that. Invariably, Tennessee was worse in the second half than the first. And
But
we
John,
never saw that. Go ahead.
well, you say supposed to be best at, but I'm always hesitant to look at a defensive coordinator not named Kirby Smart under Nick Saban and think that he has a major say, because I think Saban ultimately puts together that defense.
I realize that, but at Florida State, where he was a defensive coordinator on the national championship team, Jimbo Fisher is an offensive guy. He was the
That's
head
fair.
coach. At Georgia, defensive coordinator, though Georgia didn't have spectacular success. Mark Richt was an offensive guy. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I would be very wary of hiring a Saban defensive coordinator and think this guy is a brilliant tactician, because it's Nick Saban's defense. Kirby Smart, though, proved he's pretty sharp too, and he's now regarded as, understandably, as one of the best coaches in the country. The other thing that sticks out, Dave, and you know this, coordinators that can do really well with talent, and that players that fit their scheme and do what they want to do, they can't always adjust not to having that kind of talent on their defense. Maybe they believe really strongly in cover corners. They want two lockdown corners who can just shut down top two receivers. But if they don't have that, can they adjust? Can they mask weaknesses? And Tennessee had plenty of weaknesses to mask, and I never saw those weaknesses concealed in the least bit. It was as though Pruitt was saying, "Hey, I need some talent out here so I can run my defense." Well, the talent isn't coming, even though Casey was shelling out cash for it.
Yeah, people said the same thing about John Chavis, that he was a great coordinator as long as he had uber talent. And I think that's probably proven to be correct, because as the game changed, he struggled to, and last I heard, was coaching middle school ball. But as far as Jeremy Pruitt, I am dumbfounded. I know cheating happens at every school, but I am dumbfounded about how sloppy and widespread it apparently was. I mean, this is like this is like if you're seeing a girlfriend and you're married, you bring her home to dinner with the family. It just doesn't make.
Here, honey, meet my new girlfriend.
Just, to me, is so down the road of absurd when you read through that report. It is baffling.
It's almost like a bad movie, a parody of recruiting, of cheating and recruiting. I mean, it was as indiscreet as you can get, and that's pretty baffling. And I think you really hit on it earlier. I think Jeremy Pruitt, though never in high regard for his mental prowess, was smart enough to realize, yeah, I'm probably in over my head here.
Pretty early.
Like maybe spring practice.
Yeah, I think it was before that. Well, it would have been after that, but I think I was there at that Big Orange Caravan moment where the first stop happened to be in Chattanooga, and we were there, and he was a little blown away by the amount of people that wanted to talk to him. It kind of had that deer in headlights look, John. I remember Mike Shula had that. I remember vividly thinking, whoa, this job may be too big, much like I thought with Mike Shula at the time, way back when, before Nick Saban. But let's talk about ball opening up, because camp opens up. And John, I want to go ahead and get your final prediction for Tennessee's upcoming season. We've kicked it around a lot. I know you like the Vols and the over at 7.5, which we've seen out of Vegas. I again say that is one of the best bets on the over-unders on the entire SEC, over or under. I love the Auburn under. I love the Alabama over. I love the Tennessee over. Those are the three. But I think you and I agree that 7.5 is a very manageable number for the Vols.
Yeah, we do agree. And I think we also agree that whenever you see a number or a line and you think, man, this is so easy
right.
money, you just never collect. It just never works out. My gosh, I thought I don't remember what the line was for the Music City Bowl, Tennessee versus Purdue. I would have guaranteed that money. If I hadn't been in the business, I would have been laying down some money on that. Didn't work out that way. But I do think it's a solid bet. I think Tennessee should be the second best team in the East. Won't be easy because there are other teams that could be second in the East. But I think it could win 9 games. I think that's a reasonable expectation for a team that just won 7, returns most of its offense, returns its quarterback, returns its leading receiver. Yeah, the defense is a question mark. But as we saw last year, if Tennessee is facing mediocre teams, mediocre defenses, it can just outscore the competition. And so that's kind of what I envision for this season.
Now, and I think you're going to see something too, from what I've heard. I think you're going to see a little bit more of a 4-minute offense when they have the lead. I think that's the next evolution. If you look back at Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, also a high-paced offense, his first year there, they were exciting offensively, but they were nowhere near complete. I think you're going to see Tennessee's offense evolve and be able to do more than just outpace people.
Well, that's possible. I think it will. I think it will need to do that. I mean, you have to evolve in this league where you got all these people scouting you and looking at you. And Tennessee did well enough offensively to bother defensive coordinators. Bother defensive coordinators will then be motivated to see, okay, what can we do differently? How can we slow this thing down? But I think Josh Heupel has proved this. He wasn't a one-hit wonder. He did this at UCF. I know that's not in the SEC, but as a coordinator at Missouri, we saw the same kind of offense. A lot of different running backs excelled, quarterbacks excelled, receivers put up big numbers. I mean, that's his track record. So I don't think everything's going to he's not going to fall off the map as an offensive guy this year. I just think Tennessee's offense could be even better than last year, and it averaged 39.3. So I'm thinking it averages 40 points a game. And if you can do that, I don't think you're going to lose that many games. That's why I think 9-3 is a reasonable expectation.
I do too. Reasonable expectations at Vols Automotive Group are to be treated fairly. That's what they are all about, and that's integrity right there on Callahan. You need to get to Vols Automotive Group for their selection, and then they have the service department. If any issues arise with your car that you might have gotten there or elsewhere, we all need service, and they can take care of that at Vols Automotive Group. And again, integrity, that's what makes them stand out. Encourage you to get to Big Orange Phillies. So this is the last weekend of no football. Now, I know we're talking about the Hall of Fame game, but there is still football coming, and it's right down the pike. So Big Orange Phillies is your home for football in North Knoxville, right there in downtown Halls on Maynardville Pike. Big Orange Phillies. It is family friendly, and it is simply awesome. So for John Adams, I'm Dave Hooker. This is a production of Off the Hook Sports. We'll talk to you next week. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone.